know what I wanted to do. Um, in school, I was just good at math and science, so I was getting an associate's in science degree. But then Code the Dream showed me something different. I never even considered working in technology as a programmer. But once I got into it, I realized that, I was good at this and I could keep doing it. So that's what I decided on doing. And now I'm a full-time developer with Code the Dream, helping students like you guys and also building apps for organizations.
Great, thank you, Bruce. Lori?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lori Kamala. I'm Code the Dreams program director. Really glad to be here with you guys. Let's see. I want to also recognize Brian, who is here as another Code the Dream apprentice. And I also see that there's a few other folks who are here who are in our current classes. Before I go into sharing about the details of our upcoming classes, I want to see if any of our current apprentices, if anyone else wants to share anything about their experiences. No pressure, you don't have to, just if you want to share. Okay, all right, we're gonna keep going and it may be, we may also have, I think everyone is on mute right now also, so.
Wait, I think Grant would like to.
Oh, Grant is a current student, all right. Grant, would you like, can Grant be unmuted?
You can't unmute. She has it so you can't, yeah, I was waving so you acknowledge me. Hi, my name is Grant Young. I am a student of their current classes because I live out in the middle of nowhere. They did this thing for people who live in far off reaches of the land. I enjoy Code the Dream a lot. I think it's been very helpful, especially during this time of COVID, where a lot of us are staying at home and, our minds need to continue to work. All the mentors have been really awesome, and Slack has been a wonderful tool to be able to contact people whenever they're able to contact people, and kind of think of it like school. A lot of us have our own little Discord that we're in, and we feed off each other, helping each other out, and getting that knowledge crisscrossed between the lines so we can all learn together. Because what I've realized since I've started coding is not just a single person thing. It is something that requires group effort, because there's no possible way for you to know everything. Just yesterday, I was working on the homework and I didn't know how to do a thing. So I Googled, like anybody, how to do a thing. And, there's thousands of things that pop up, because clearly there's always going to be someone with more or less knowledge than you. But, the fact is we're all here together, and you should use the assets that are around you. And that's why I'm thankful that I'm part of Code the Dream and other good things. I didn't write this. I'm on the spot, and now I'm rambling, and I'm going to stop.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Grant. And that is a wild background you have going on there. But that's awesome. Thanks for sharing a little of your experience. Yeah, okay, well, let me get right into sharing some about our upcoming class, and then we will be able to go right into questions. We do have everyone muted right now because it looks like we've got over 60 people on the call. So just if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and Lydia is our amazing tech person. She's going to monitor all of those questions in the chat, and we've got lots of different apprentices, interns on this call who will be able to help answer those questions. Yes, Code the Dream's upcoming classes. We're super excited. Thanks to Alex for that introduction to Code the Dream and sharing some of your experience. We are having 2 classes that are going to be starting towards the end of March. The first one is a back-end class. It's a Ruby on Rails class. And this is, as Grant mentioned, we do have a current class going on right now. And so a lot of the students from our current class that we call Katarina are going to be going direct, and that was an intro to programming class. They will be going into the Ruby on Rails class. We are going to open that class up to some other people, but there are a few additional requirements for that class since not everyone will have gone through the intro to programming class, and I'll mention those in a minute. The other class, and so the Ruby on Rails class is starting on March 17th and will run through July 7th. We are, all of our classes now are going to be more standard, a more standard 16 weeks long. So yeah, about 4 months. We have an intro to programming class starting on March 31st. That one also will be 16 weeks long and will end around July 21st. I say around because there's always, maybe something comes up and we have to delay a week or whatever. But so it's going to be about 16 weeks. In the intro to programming class, you learn sort of basic JavaScript, CSS, HTML. We use a lot of Git and GitHub through our classes, so you'll be learning to interact with those programs as a way to submit your assignments. And then, of course, in Ruby on Rails, Cruz is a Ruby on Rails developer, and who knows, maybe one of our mentors. I don't know. We haven't talked about that yet, but Cruz is just a Ruby on Rails genius and can answer all your questions about that language. But to go into the Ruby on Rails class, if you're interested in that, I'm going to share what some of those general requirements are. So some of you who maybe already have a little bit of experience programming, you might be interested in that class. Because you do need to have some understanding of how the command line works, how to use a code editor, how to use Git and submit things through GitHub. You need to know some basic HTML and CSS and some JavaScript. So those are, those are some of the basic requirements that you'll need if you want to go into that Ruby on Rails class, because those things will not be covered in that class. It'll be assumed that you already know that. If you are newer to programming and are just interested in being exposed to things for the first time, then the Intro to Programming class is very good. I do want to mention that all of our classes really are career track classes. So these are not the right classes for you if you're just sort of curious. Would I like coding? We've got lots of recommendations for free classes to do online to just give you a taste. And in fact, our pre-work, which is going to be the next step in the application process, which I'll talk about in a minute. The pre-work will actually give you a little sample of that. And there's many more resources we can share if you're interested in just sort of exploring programming. But if you want to join a Code the Dream class, this is for people who know they want to become software developers. It's, like I said, it's a career track. You come out of this program, if you go through Intro to Programming and then either Ruby on Rails or React JS afterwards, you come out, ready to get to work. So that's why we really want you to be very serious about this. Our classes are completely free. Obviously, it's a very unique thing for a boot camp. We're really trying to diversify the tech industry. We're trying to give more opportunities to people who may have not had those opportunities before. And so it's a completely free program. We know that's very unique. And we expect a level of seriousness from our students. It's a very competitive program because it's free. So we want to make sure that we're going to give this opportunity to people who are going to use it well and really work hard to become, reach their dream of being a developer. After all the applications are in, so applications are due tomorrow. Hopefully you can, hopefully many of you I know have already applied. Any of you who have not yet applied, please, go ahead, codethedream.org/apply-now. Maybe Alex or Lydia can put that in the chat. But you can, go ahead and submit your application. And then the next step, application due tomorrow, then on the 22nd, we will be sending out what we call the pre-work. The pre-work is a JavaScript tutorial that we expect you to go through and do all the exercises in there. And then you will have to submit a code sample to us. at the end of that. We expect that process to take about 15 hours of work to go through the entire tutorial and then do the coding, produce the code sample at the end. So that's another way that we'll know that you're very serious about this class if you're willing to go through that entire process. If you are in a current Code the Dream class, or if you are a Code the Dream intern and want to take another class, you do not have to go through the pre-work process. Though you might want to, those of you who had to do it before, to just see how far you've come in your knowledge. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, and then we'll open it up to questions, or there's two more things. One is about the time commitment and this class structure. As I've mentioned, this is a class for serious students only. You need to allow the space in your life for this class. It takes a lot of time to learn to code, and hopefully we can have some of our former students chime in on this in a minute. But we tell students to allow 10 to 20 hours per week. Of course, that will depend for every person on how fast you pick it up, on how much experience you had in the past, but it can be, it's very challenging. It's very challenging work. You'll have each week, you'll have a few hours of video instruction, usually, sometimes up to 4 hours of videos that you'll be watching to give you the basis in the concepts. And then you will have additional assignments to complete on top of that. Now, I'll say I am not a developer myself. Now, I've been through actually a couple of the Code the Dream classes, and when I see how much time the videos, so say we have like 3 hours of videos one week, I know that that means for me, it's going to take about 12 hours. I times 4, whatever the video time is, I times 4, because that's how much it takes to watch the video, go through, try it yourself, rewind, do, really learn. So that's just for the video part. That's maybe like 12 hours of video watching, and then you're reviewing things and doing the assignments on top of that. So it's a time commitment. It's different for me. It was very different than other kinds of studying, because you need solid blocks of very quiet time, a very intense concentration. So yeah, just before I move on, I was wondering if any of our current students or interns want to say anything about that, about the time commitment, and how my experience has lined up with yours. Let's see. I'm not sure if people, okay, Grant.
Yeah, Grant.
Okay, thanks, Lydia.
I have the power to unmute, so if you would like to speak, just raise your hand, send a reaction, and I'll get it. So, got it, Grant? Asked him.
Okay. Everybody's kind of different, and that's my realization of it. I do agree with Lori that, especially because it depends on how you watch the videos. Now, if you're just one of those people who sit there and just watch it and don't like stop it and pause it so you can type out, because not Code the Dream, but the service that they use, Team Treehouse, also has this thing called the workspace, the workshop, whatever it's called, where it brings up its own little code editor where you can practice along with them. So, the people kind of talk a little bit fast and all this other stuff. And they talk about how, oh, we have a little slider that you can slide up and down. But do you really want to hear a voice that's kind of roboticized and a little bit obnoxious? No, you listen to it in real time. And sometimes it gets overwhelming. So you pause and do all that stuff. But, on top of that, they also have the teacher's notes. And once again, Google and all these other services are a plethora. So if you haven't been in school in a while, then yeah, it may take a little bit longer than normal, but you just gotta remember, like, it's considered a career path, but also, like, I've just kind of considered it as going back to school and getting back into that school mindset. And the one major thing is, like with anything, you can't just do the schoolwork and be done with it. Even when we had the 2-week break for Christmas, I was working on just ideas that I had, because I had enough ability in my head to finally take the code that I've learned and actually apply to other things. So it's one of those, once you get into this, you never stop learning, because you're constantly, like, from doing the assignments in the actual website, from doing the assignments that Code the Dream gives you. This is what she said. This is a commitment. Like you're not going to be able to say, oh, I'm going to take a little bit off from doing this. It's kind of not like riding a bike. It definitely feels like once you lose it, you kind of lose it. Like a language. That's why it's called a language. Haha. I learned Japanese and can't remember anything because I haven't spoken it in 2 years. And I took that for 2.5 years. Like I don't remember anything. So it's kind of one of those things you got to keep on weekly, daily, whatever you want to consider.
That's awesome. Thank you, Grant. I see there's a lot of questions coming in, so I want to just get through this and then we'll get right into the questions. Let me see. Okay, just another couple points that I think people are usually interested in is in terms of how many people will get in. It is a very competitive program. We usually have a few hundred applicants for our classes. The Ruby on Rails class will probably be a little bit smaller. We're expecting around 25 folks for that. And the Intro to Programming class, probably around 35. So in that, the intro to, I'm not going in order here, but I just saw one question that just came in. The Intro to Programming class is definitely the class that you would take if you're a beginner. In terms of what happens after the classes, and then just to let you know, the way at Code the Dream, we're sort of revising our schedule of classes. We're actually working towards developing an annual schedule so that we'll be having more classes. The plan is to have three sort of cohorts throughout the year, and that will start with an Intro to Programming class, and then it will divide up and you can choose to go into the front end, which is the React.js, or on the back end, which is Ruby on Rails. Right now we're starting with the Ruby class because we just, a number of reasons, doesn't really matter, but we're doing a Ruby class right now. But starting with our Intro to Programming class, it is going to become a process where you'll have Intro to Programming, then the front end or the back end, and then Intro to Programming, and then front end or the back end. So following that front end or back end class, so if you're just starting out, you'd take Intro to Programming, then that's 16 weeks. Then you'd choose front end or back end, then that's 16 weeks. After that time is when we will start to look at who is ready for the apprenticeship. It's a small percentage of people who get the apprenticeship. Unfortunately, we do not have the full, we don't have funding to bring on as many people as we'd like. But that is, the apprenticeship is about a year long, is what we're saying now. The idea is that you will go on to get a great job as a developer after that. Of our class graduates, we are looking at the final projects. Each of the classes has a final project at the end. And we're looking at final projects, class participation, and just general skill level of coding to determine who gets into the apprenticeship. We also have another program called a practicum, which is a part-time experience that will allow you to work on a real project and really still gain some experience working on real projects after the class ends. In terms of what we are looking for when we are choosing students, because like I said, it's a very competitive program, we're looking for that commitment to becoming a developer and real dedication and willingness to work very hard. We're looking for that drive. We are ideally looking for people who already have some experience so that you like it. Coding is not for everyone. Coding is not for everyone, and it's important to be able to really determine what you're interested in, to determine if this is the path for you. And once you've determined the path for you, then Code the Dream may be for you. That's pretty much what I have, but I know there are tons of questions that have come in. Lydia and Alex, I'm not sure. Do you feel like you have a handle on the questions, or should what's the best way to proceed? Should I just look at the questions that have come in, or do you want to ask them?
I can help you ask the questions. Let's see.
Wait, Alex, before we do that, a quick sort of process question. Lydia, have you, I guess if one of our staff or interns wants to answer the questions, what's the best method?
I
Or
would
let you know.
say
Unmute.
if the staff could use the raise hand function, I could then, that will bring them directly to my line of sight and I could ask them to unmute.
Great. So if all Code the Dream staff and interns could use the raise hand function, and if people who have questions could type them, I think. And I guess there's some other folks who have.
So just to be clear that the staff, Code the Dream staff can raise hands to be unmuted, then everyone else who's viewing could just use the chat function.
Staff and interns, yeah.
Yeah, staff and interns, thank you.
Okay, Alex. Go ahead.
All right, so it says I submitted application but received no email confirming that it was received. How I make sure it was received?
Sure, good question. We don't actually have an email confirmation that goes back to you. You should have seen on the screen, it should have said, we got your application. We probably got your application. As long as you filled it out, we almost definitely got it. If you're still unsure about that, then you can send one of us an email, Lori@codethedream.org, Lydia@codethedream.org, or Alex@codethedream.org, and we can double check. But we probably got it.
All right, so is there any connection between Ruby on Rails and Intro to Programming class, like take intro class first, then Ruby class, or vice versa, or each person can only take one class for CTD?
Usually the way it's going to be working is that you'll take Intro to Programming first, and then you will decide if you want to go into the Ruby on Rails or the React.js class. For some people who already have some experience coding, we will consider you for this Ruby on Rails class if you already have some experience and can meet those requirements.
If I want to be a full stack engineer, is there a full stack class available, or just need to finish both front end and back end classes? Thanks.
You'll need to do the front end class and the back end class, both of them. Yes.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get on the cadence so that all of our classes will be offered a little bit more regularly.
It says, what is the best coding courses for beginners?
That is Intro to Programming for Code the Dream classes. There's all kinds of free resources out there to start if you want to start on something else. But through Code the Dream, that's the Intro to Programming class.
If I want to do front-end development, do I need to take Intro to Programming if I have prior coding experience?
If you have prior coding experience, it will sort of depend on what that experience is. In general, yes, the path is to take Intro to Programming first and then backend. Wait, was that about backend? Is that question backend?
Front end.
Oh, I'm sorry, front end. Yeah, so you can send us a separate email if you have extensive experience prior. But our front end class is not going to start for several months, so so you might as well take the Intro to Programming or sign up. Yeah, apply for it anyway.
All right. Is the interview contains coding questions?
No, there are no coding questions in. Well, in the interview to get into the class, there are no coding questions. In the interview to get into the apprenticeship, we might go over. We will go over code from your final project, but that's not to enter the class. That's to enter the apprenticeship.
I think you already answered this question, but it says, what does the Intro to Programming covers? Can you explain more, please?
So there's HTML, CSS, some basic JavaScript, using Git. Those are some of the basic things that are covered.
Let's see. I think that's all the questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? Can some of
So,
our,
I think Kenneth Durham had his hand up. Are you still there, Kenneth?
and Constantine, did I say that right? Yeah.
Hello, I have question about full stack. As I understood, if I want to be full stack web developer, I have to finish first class, front end, for example, and backend class, Ruby on Rails. But as I understood and as I know, these two classes will go parallel at the same time.
Yes, that's correct right now. And that's because we are just finishing up another intro to programming class that was for a smaller set. But in the future, it will always be intro to programming and then front end and back end that will be parallel. And then intro to programming will start again. So there'll be a cycle of class. So we'll have, let me see, we'll have intro to programming starting in early February, early May, and early August every year, hopefully. And then the front end and back end classes will start this year. They will start in July, early August. And then, but in the future, it will be in June, September, and January when the classes start. So we're getting onto a cycle. We're just starting onto a cycle now. So if you apply for the intro to programming class right now, as soon as that class is done, then the other classes will open up, front end and back end.
I applied to front end and back end, but not in entering programming. And as I understood, if these classes will go at the same time, it will too much, or?
We don't recommend that you take more than one of those classes at the same time because they build on each other. Do you already have experience? Do you already have some coding experience?
Yes, I have, but what you could recommend me in this case? Go to interim programming and after it front end, or I'm a little lost in this system, sorry.
Sure, sorry for the confusion. I think, so you applied for the backend, the Ruby on Rails class and the React class. Okay, I think that's fine, especially if you already have some experience programming. I think that's probably fine. If you want, I can go back and mark you as interested in intro to programming. But it sounds like you may already have the knowledge that would cover. So that would qualify you for the Ruby on Rails class.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
We have a
thank you.
couple more questions, Lori. It says, what are the steps for the application process after the initial application and the pre-work?
Okay, good question. So applications are due tomorrow. The next day we'll send out the pre-work. The pre-work is due, the pre-work will be due on February 2nd. So you'll have, just about 2 weeks to complete the pre-work. After that, about a week or so later, we will be notifying people, those who will be interviewed and those who did not get in yet. Then the week of about February 15th for the Ruby on Rails class. Okay, let me tell you, all of this information is on codethedream.org/classes. And in the frequently asked questions section, there's one that says upcoming dates, or dates for upcoming classes. And all of these dates are on there. So I don't know, Lydia, if you could put that in the chat, that would be great. But yes, basically the process is pre-work, interviews, class starts.
Right. What are the class schedule and video sessions typically look like?
Class schedule videos. Okay, so the class schedule is, we have, everything will be on a website for how you know what you're supposed to be working on. And then your video assignments will be on there. So you can watch those at any time that you want. Now then you have to sign up for at least 2 or more what we call mentor sessions every week. The mentor sessions are times when a professional developer or one of our apprentices is on with you and a small group going through the lessons, going through the material from that week. Those are held live. There's many different times. You can sign up for whatever times works for you. I don't know. Let me see. Jasper or Asiya, do one of you want to speak to your experience of mentor sessions?
Sure, I can share. So for those who are not native speaker like me, yeah, I was worrying about like, oh, I type so slow, I have a lot of typo, but then after I got accepted into this program, it was, you know, like worriness. Like you don't have to worry about those because you will know most of the stuff from all the either the class or the online platform, and the mentors, they are really helpful. Yeah, you can reach out to like each class has different mentor, but you can reach out. You will be putting in a channel that you have access to every other staff. And yeah, I mainly when I was in Ruby on Rails class, I mainly reach out to Cruz and Crystal because I feel like their style is more, I don't know, I feel more relaxed talking to them. So yeah, those two are the 2 mentors that I mainly reached out, and they respond like really fast. So like whatever silly question you have, like oh, I'm still wondering, should I keep learning Ruby on Rails? They will give you a lot of motivation. So don't worry too much. Yeah, just apply for the class. Yeah, that's my experience. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gasper. Are there any recommended spec for my computer?
Yes, there are. But for the first class, you basically you just need to have a good internet connection and a working computer. You don't have to get too much into the specs until after. And I don't know if Cruz, can you speak to that for the Rails class, for the Ruby on Rails class? If there'd be recommended specs for the computer.
I don't know, I guess a computer that just doesn't jam up too much. You know, you need a working keyboard, you need a screen, a Wi-Fi connection. I don't know what else. You have to, I don't know. As long as it works, I think it's good.
Cruz can program with anything, you know, there could be a rock, he could figure it out. So
Yeah, I mean, I used to program on Windows, and as I started working on projects, I was getting some like specific Windows errors that I didn't like dealing with, and then I switched to Mac. But that doesn't mean you necessarily have to have a Mac to be a programmer. I was doing it just fine for months.
I think Kwasi and Arman wants to answer that, and Brian as well.
Yeah, I would definitely also say any PC you have should be able to work. I had both a Windows and then eventually I had a Windows computer for almost a year and a half, and I was able to program on there. Then I switched over to a Mac. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage going out to buy the most expensive thing out there. I would definitely maybe start with what you have and see if you're able to get the programs running on what you have. And if it works, it works. And then maybe go from there.
Yeah, to kind of speak a little bit on the opposite. So I started developing on a Mac, but I ended up making a move to a Windows PC eventually. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Macs are best for development, just kind of throwing that out there. But the only thing that I think you really kind of want to watch out for is like if you have a Chromebook or anything that the processing power isn't necessarily there. A lot of the times that's going to cause a lot of those issues when you're trying to run like your backend on Ruby or your front end servers. So that'd be the only thing I'd kind of shy away from. But it's definitely something you could start off in the intro and work your way to getting something within budget.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be working with React. I know that when I tried it, I had an 8 gig computer and it wasn't enough for what I was trying to do. So at least you eventually need like a 16 gig, if that.
Yeah, I would agree with Alex and Brian as well. I would not recommend tablet if possible. Try and definitely get a desktop or a laptop.
Yeah, but for intro to programming, any computer, it's good for you. Thank you, guys. There is some more questions.
I think Paula wanted to answer, I think, as well.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say as far as computer specs, I think the most, the biggest program you're going to need is Visual Studio. And for that, just like a compiler, I think you can use like Notepad++, and that helps with like syntax highlighting, which is like highlighting the helpful bits of your code. But you really need just a compiler to download Git Bash. This is for intro to programming, and having a computer that you don't cut in and out of Zoom, which I mean, everyone who's using video right now, you seem to be doing fine. So that's pretty much all that you need. And as I just wanted to say something about the mentor sessions that they mentioned earlier and worrying about getting enough help. The help is plentiful. Like once you're in the help, there is so much help. Mentors are almost always like the nicest people ever and will stay like 30 minutes after or 30 minutes before and help you one-on-one if you're like too shy to ask a question in front of everybody. Or like even like fellow students, if you prefer to learn alongside somebody. I've definitely had like spent hours on Discord calls, on Zoom calls with a lot of my classmates, Grant and Karen, that were just here that had to leave for a mentor session. They're my classmates and we spend a lot of time just coding alongside each other, and that is so helpful. So definitely don't worry. There's so many resources. If you don't like researching by yourself, like no matter what kind of learning you need, there's something for everybody. So yeah, there's not, for intro to programming, all you need is something that can run like Notepad. So I think you'll be fine as long as you have something that can run something.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. Question, it says, everyone starts at intro to programming for beginner. After that, how do I determine I want to stay front end or back end since I never tried that?
You will be exposed to that during intro to programming. They'll talk to you about your front end and back end options. So you don't have to worry about that yet.
All right, cool. Is the CTD curriculum from Treehouse similar to what is offered by some public libraries?
I would just say that the Code the Dream curriculum is much more robust, and we use the video content from Treehouse, teamtreehouse.com, and we provide all of our students with a login access to that. But we have instructors who are creating the curriculum and deciding which goes when and how to pair things up and creating the assignments. So it's there are some self-paced aspects to it because there are videos that you can watch whenever you want, but it is a very robust class. So it's not like just doing a video class on your own, and it's not like, now I don't know, I guess it would depend on the library. I don't know what kinds of classes are being offered at libraries, but we consider it to be like a college level class.
It says, I have completed Code Tenderloin, Code Ramp, and I'm in Code Ramp++. What are the chances of getting accepted to Intro to Programming?
Yeah, and I go in Bay Area. We work very closely with the Code Tenderloin staff, so I think you can definitely talk to them about that as well. But yeah, I think it's just, I see that somebody else asked a question about the criteria and why someone might not be accepted to the program. The only reason you would not be accepted to the program is just because of demand. We had, in our last class, we had 400 applicants for 40 spaces. So, you know, it doesn't mean that 360 applicants weren't good applicants. It just meant that we literally did not have the space or capacity. Yeah, I'll just say that it's the only problem is that our capacity is the demand far exceeds our capacity. So we would love for every single person to be in our class, but we just don't have capacity.
Another question says, when we start the application, it seems no need experience, but after all in the last step, like interview stage, you denied a person by saying like experienced person prior, why you did like that. Sorry, that's the way it's written.
I think that's just what I just said. The only reason that, you know, you'd be denied is because there was not enough space. And we do hope that people will have, because there has been such great demand, we are looking now for people who have a little bit more experience, just because, you know, we're working towards the day when there's going to be a complete self-paced Code the Dream open curriculum that anyone can do at any time, that may or may not have mentor sessions, but right now we're just trying to keep up with demand the best as we can.
Is there a list of students somewhere to check if you got my application?
I think Lydia answered here. That's great. Yeah, Lydia, do you want to answer that out loud?
Yes, we do have a list in Airtable that has everyone who's applied. You have your names and all the answers you have answered. And if you would, on Friday, you will receive an email with the link and instructions to the pre-work. So that will for sure tell you that we got your application. Here's the next step. But if you just want the reassurance that we do have it before then, you can email me at Lydia@Code the Dream, and I could tell you like for sure we got your application.
Thanks, Lydia. It says, what will be the questions that typically ask in the interview?
The interview to get into the class. I mean, it's mostly just learning more about you, learning more about how you have tried to already learn programming. Like I said, we know that, you know, Code the Dream was created for people who did not necessarily have any experience programming. And because there's, you know, the demand has grown so much, and also our work has really grown, we are now looking for people who have some experience. It doesn't mean you have to be a pro at it. It doesn't mean you have to have gone to school for it. It means you show us that you are very dedicated, and that maybe you didn't have access to any coding classes growing up. That's fine, but maybe you went on YouTube on your phone and learned as much as you could. That shows a dedication to us. So it's not so much that you have to have a great amount of experience, but we need to see a demonstrated commitment and that dedication. So there's not you know, it's not going to be like hard questions. It's just like getting to know you and what makes you, why you want to be a programmer, and what are the steps you're taking to get there, and how does this fit into your plan? And
It says, what jobs opportunities does the path offers?
so we, most people who go through Code the Dream program end up finding jobs on their own. We don't have a dedicated person. Like there's some programs like Code Tenderloin in San Francisco, I think does a much better job than Code the Dream does of really working with you to help identify job possibilities. We sort of give you all the tools, and hopefully someday we will, you know, maybe have more capacity in that area. But we offer a number of different resources to help you learn how to build a good portfolio, and you know, some great sites where you can practice technical interviews. And we have huddles or workshops sometimes that are about how to, you know, refine your resume, how to build up your LinkedIn, all of that. But we don't have dedicated staff that are guiding you through that. We have people who you can certainly ask for support, but you have to take the initiative on that.
Right. What are the selection criteria for those who don't have previous experience in coding? If someone isn't good at math, do you believe it's okay for such a candidate?
I think if you don't have any experience, you should try out some, you know, Khan Academy. You can look at, there's the Odin project. There's lots of, and I think there might even be some resources on our website. And if not, we can send them to you. There's lots of free, completely free self-guided tours or you know, exposures out there, as well as just YouTube. So I think we would really recommend that you try that before applying to Code the Dream, so that you know this is for you. I think that would be a great first step. And I don't know if any of our interns or staff have any reflection on that either. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Is the pre-work for beginners too?
Yes, you do not have to have any previous experience before you do our pre-work. It's definitely for beginners.
It says, I applied for Ruby and Rails, but now I want to change for intro to programming because I'm a beginner. So can I apply again? Yes, you can. I think tomorrow is the last day that you can apply.
But we can also I can just put down your name and we can make that change. Yeah, is that for Ferregenet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if Lydia, if you could maybe note that down, that'd be great.
What time of the day mentor sessions will typically run Eastern time? During the typical workday or after hours?
It varies. There's usually many different options. We have usually about 10 different options a week, and some of them are in the evening, some of them are on the weekend, some of them are during the day.
Right. It says, why would an intro to programming class be denied when experience is not required? I tried last time and got denied.
Yeah, I think Gray already answered that about just capacity.
The mentor sessions are in person or through Zoom?
They are through Zoom. And even when the pandemic is over, they will still be through Zoom because it's a national program now. So we have students from all over the country participating.
Can I finish the course earlier than the class schedule?
Sure. Yeah, you can. I mean, the mentor sessions will line up to the lessons for each week. So you can, but you won't have the same benefit of the the mentor sessions, because the mentor sessions will be lining up with that week's lessons.
Are they having a final project as well, Lori?
The intro to programming? Yes,
Yeah.
every class will have a final project.
All right. I think that's all the questions. Does anybody have any more questions?
Is Kenneth still there? I saw Kenneth's hand up several times, and I just want to make sure that Kenneth's question got answered.
Yes, you answered my question very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Just checking.
All right. Can some of our current interns give some advice for new students?
There's a question about if denied the first time, how soon can they reapply?
Well, because we are trying to really work on a more regular schedule of classes, you can reapply, very soon after. It'll depend on when we open the application for the next round of classes, but it won't be long. If you are denied for whatever reason, again, it may just be because of our capacity and there's too much demand. But if you are denied, I would suggest just continuing to work on code in your own time and learn in your own time, because that shows us that you're really dedicated. Okay, Alex, I loved your question. Cool. Why don't you ask that again?
Yeah, can some of our interns just give some advice for the new students? I'm gonna start calling names. Brian?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give kind of relates back to what Lori just finished saying is make sure you kind of put in the work yourself to learn even outside of the classes, or even if you don't get denied. Like there's like people have continued to mention time and time again, we live in like a digital age where the resources are basically unlimited. You can find the answer to almost anything online. And with that, you can also learn how to program and self-teach to some extent. So I would definitely lean on like your mentors if you end up getting in the program, and even if you don't, just continue trying to program outside of it. And even within the program, there'll be times where you'll hit a wall where you just feel like you're not learning anything else, or you feel like your brain is overloaded, but really just go back, practice the fundamentals, and then eventually as you move through, things will begin to click and kind of the pieces will begin to kind of turn and help each other.
Can you just tell us how hard the classes really were for you?
So I actually came on with a little bit of prior programming experience. So the language I previously learned wasn't all that different. So it was a little bit easier, but I did end up basically dedicating 8 hours a day for about 3 months, Monday through Friday, to get through the curriculum so that we can start working on some real life projects, because that was kind of what I was looking forward to. And I do best, my best learning by doing. So kind of the tutorials were a little bit dry for me. So I just wanted to get to the end so that I can actually start building and start putting things into practice. That way those things would click. And that's why I always say is just continue building, continue trying things out. I mean, like in life, you learn by mistakes, right? You learn by breaking things. Learning a code isn't much different.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. I think Wasi and Arman want to talk, Lee.
Yes, I would just like to coattail on what Brian said. I mean, I think it's pretty much, like I said, a very good opportunity to learn from your mentors and your instructors. Like I said, if you don't break it, you won't know how to fix it. So don't be afraid to, just dive into it and just learn as much as you possibly can. Don't feel overwhelmed. It's going to be a lot of information coming at you, and just kind of pick apart what you are picking up on easiest and just run with it. The support here is amazing. So don't ever feel like you are not, or you can't, ask a question. So yeah.
Kwasi,
Yeah.
thanks.
Very cool. I think the only thing I would add to that is, like Laurie said, just be mindful. It is going to take a lot of time. So I will say, if you do want to do this, you have to be dedicated. It's something that you would have to want to do. And I think coming in, just being mindful that it's going to take time to study. It's going to take time to practice. It's going to take time to go through the videos. So I would say, if this is a journey that you do want to go on, just be mindful that it is going to take a decent amount of time and learning how to program it. But I will also say it's worth it 100%. Anyone who's an intern has gone through the program, so it is doable. And the interns will tell you that we've enjoyed it. I love what I do 100%. But if I had any advice, I would say definitely, as Laurie said, if you haven't programmed before, check out some free resources and make sure you're dedicated when you decide to do this course. If you're dedicated and determined, you can make it through the course.
Great, thanks, Kwasi.
I think that is a
Anyone
good
else?
to end on. We're right at 5, so yeah.
Any last questions?
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. Look forward to seeing all those applications in tomorrow.
If you have any questions, just send us an email.
And if anyone, I can stay on a few more minutes if anyone wants to, if anyone has a couple more questions, but thanks, everybody.